Hey guys, welcome to Sketch a Day. I'm Spencer, where every day I bring you something new about visual communication or sketching and help you learn a little something new. Today I am going to cover something that has been widely talked about again, which is the iPad Pro. And the question is whether or not it can be used for real work. And one of the things that's been kind of popping up on the internet is a really cool app called Astropad. And when I saw this, I thought, okay, this is cool. Let me reach out to them and see if I can get a copy and test it out. And sure enough, they got back to me, which speaks volumes about how responsive and dedicated they are to this app. And so what I'd like to do is just kind of take you through how I worked with Astropad just for a couple hours today, and what I think this means for the iPad Pro as a productivity tool. So Astropad is a $20 app in the App Store. So if I go to the App Store here and search for it, here it is right here. You can check it out. Costs about $20, well, $19.99. And the question is it really worth it? And what can I do with it? So the way it works is you can either I'm connected via cable right here, my lightning cable to my laptop, which you can see right there. And the laptop is now tethered to the iPad. So when I run Astropad on my iPad here, there's also a companion app running on my Mac. So here it is. It's just a little bar at the top. And when I tap the Astropad icon, it connects and presents me with a mirrored image of what's on my screen. Now, I think the main question here, at least the one that I'm getting a lot of, is does this replace a Cintiq? Well, there's some similarities and some pretty major differences between this and a Cintiq experience. However, let's just cover some of the basics. So I am using the Apple Pencil, which means I have a pressure-sensitive tip here on this active stylus. And the cool thing with Astropad anyways is that pressure sensitivity is translated. When you do draw an Astropad on the screen, you'll notice that there's this little magenta trail. If I zoom in here, you'll kind of see, hopefully a little bit better, there's a little magenta trail. And that's actually something that you can turn on or off in the app. So if I click on Astropad, this little circle is always here. It gives me a bunch of options. So much like on a Cintiq, you've got programmable quick buttons that you can use. So if I want to increase my brush size or jump to the eraser, undo, and so forth, it's right there at the touch of this little ring. Specifically, I can jump to my preferences in Astropad by hitting this little astro guy on that button. So I have this magenta line preview, and I can turn it on or off. So if I turn it off and go back, now when I draw, I don't get that line preview. Okay, so if that's something that bugs you, you can turn that on or off. But I'm going to leave it on here. You can also adjust the length of that preview. Actually, from the default, I brought this down to, let's see, 0.082 or so seconds. There's also, links to community support if you want to monetarily support or rather give some feedback, to the app. You can do that right there. Or, if you want to sign up for email and so forth. So really cool. So let's get to the basic functionality. So the pressure sensitivity does carry over. That's probably the main question. Okay, with the Apple Pencil, do I get pressure sensitivity in something like Photoshop? So on my Mac here, I've got Adobe Photoshop CC running, and let's zoom out. Hopefully you guys saw that okay. I've got Adobe Photoshop CC running, so that means that I have all my tools at my disposal. Now, as far as brushes go, I am using some custom brushes that I created for myself, and these are the main brushes that I use when I paint in Photoshop. So I've got a pencil-like brush that I can sketch with. So if I were sketching something simple, I always seem to default to a car for some reason. Pressure sensitivity does carry over, okay? And you can see that it is pretty responsive. There are a couple little quirks, however, that I'll kind of go over that I found as I was using this, but as far as a nugget of an idea, it's pretty good. So if I were just trying to capture, some quick ideas here, just wanted to sketch something out on my iPad Pro, I could do that pretty easily using Astropad. So I found that there are some strengths to this experience, but there are also some weaknesses. Strength being, if I wanted to, I could, because I'm essentially working on my Mac here, I can use what's called AirDrop on a Mac, save this file, and share it to my iPad, and I'll have it, and I can take it and throw it into something like Procreate and finish up when I'm ready. But what's being shown on the iPad is being shown on my screen here, and hopefully you guys can see that in my over-the-shoulder view, that what you see on the iPad is being translated. Now, like I said, there are a few little quirks. So for example, if you're using this without a keyboard, I find that it's a little bit limiting. I do have, if you notice in the camera view, I do have my keyboard positioned in front of my tablet. This is just generally how I work with a Cintiq anyways. But that way I can access my shortcuts. If you don't have the laptop in front of you, I find it a little cumbersome. In fact, even with my Cintiq, I don't really use these quick buttons or shortcuts on the side of a Cintiq tablet. So it takes a little bit getting used to, but if that's something you're used to, you can always do that. You can actually customize those keys on the side of the iPad, but you do have to do it through the Mac app. So hopefully you can see this. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. Oh, maybe not. If I jump over here and go to my preferences, I can actually customize. So you probably can't see this too well, but I can actually customize what these, there you can see it on the overhead. I can customize what these shortcuts are. So if I want to rename this to brush size up, now it says brush size up on my iPad right there, and I can customize that. Click out of that and back to my little drawing here in Photoshop. So pretty cool. One of the downsides to Astropad that I'm finding so far is, unlike a Cintiq, if you've ever used a Wacom Cintiq, one of the things that you do get is you get a preview of where the mouse cursor will be. Now, you might think, well, if you're drawing on screen, you don't really need that. There are some cases where you would want to use that. For example, if I pick my stylus up here, I'm not always looking at the screen here as I'm drawing. I want to see on my laptop screen as well what this is going to look like, where my stylus is going to be. So it's nice to be able to follow where that's going to be. So in other words, on a Wacom tablet, as I move this stylus, this pencil, if this were my Wacom stylus, you'd actually see that cursor move along, okay, with that. So I don't know if that's something that technically can be done or that is feasible, but that's one of the little quirks that I've found. Now, another question might be, okay, does pinch to zoom work, rotate, all those things that we're used to? Yes, it does. So I can tap with 2 fingers here and a little magenta icon shows up. You can see that right there. And that actually allows me to pinch to zoom in or pan in Photoshop. Or if you're like me and you always have access to your keyboard, my left hand is kind of my shortcut hand, you can just hit spacebar and command, and that'll let you zoom in on Photoshop to get those details in. Okay, one of the other quirks that I'm not super jazzed about is I can't pinch and rotate, at least in Photoshop. So I have to default to the shortcut key to get back to what I wanted, okay? But all in all, it works pretty well in terms of being able to access the full potential of Adobe Photoshop on your iPad. Like I said, I'm tethered by my cable right now, but if I wanted to, I could actually pull this off and go to another room in my house and work as if I'm working on my Mac here. So in that sense, it's pretty cool that it gives you that wireless flexibility of being able to access all your Mac apps. So can the iPad Pro be used for real work? The answer, as I always say, is yes. It depends on how you work personally. For me, I'm trying to figure out new ways to work that aren't necessarily tethered, no pun intended, or tied to the way that I'm used to or accustomed to working. So that being said, I think Astropad is a great kind of gap filler, if you will. So if you find that you have an iPad Pro and you're missing out on something like, say, an FTP program that you want to use to log into an FTP server and get some stuff done, it's a nice alternative or option to allow you to do that. So you can kind of think of it that way. But like I said, the cool thing is you are accessing your Mac computer. So if you want to, I don't think this works on Windows either. So there is that aspect to consider if you're a Windows user and you wanted to get an iPad. This doesn't work on Windows, at least as far as I know. I'm in contact with the developers, so I can ask them questions and see what's happening there. But I'm sure they're getting lots of questions like that already, because this is kind of cool that I can essentially mirror what's on my iPad, or on my computer rather, on my iPad. Now, having used this for just a few minutes, I can hear my laptop fans kicking in. So obviously there's some processing happening in the background that's causing my laptop to get a little excited. So if that's something that's going to bug you, then consider that a downside. Otherwise, I do have access to the full app here. Now, that means that I can access things like Autodesk Sketchbook Pro and all of its tools, right? So if I want to do a fisheye perspective, I have access to all of the tools there for Sketchbook Pro. And so now I can start to sketch, okay, using those powerful tools. So again, if you think of your PC or your Mac computer, I guess in this case, as a, there I've got a notification. But if you think of it as a truck or utility vehicle that is specialized and can help you do certain things, then Astropad and the iPad Pro work as kind of a quick means to, let's get rid of this here, a quick means to capturing ideas and concepts. And that's pretty great, I think. So going back to my original question, is it worth it? So if you consider the cost of an iPad Pro, which is roughly, I think it's $799 starting price, or $899. In any case, lots of money for the starting price. Then you might want to consider all the stuff you're going to have to get for it, like the pencil, and you're going to have to get potentially a keyboard of some sort if you need to do some typing or that kind of thing. So it could get expensive. And then you've got to consider, all right, if I'm going to be using all new drawing apps, I've got to buy all those apps, and I've got to get Astropad, which is $20. Things start to add up. So there is that cost to consider. However, you could also consider the cost of a Cintiq, which is about, I think there was a Black Friday deal where they had it for about $1,700 or so. And for some people, that's a lot of money. So you may want to consider before you invest in something like that. This is actually working out pretty great in Sketchbook Pro. You can see with a little bit more time and effort here, I could probably crank out something pretty decent in a fisheye perspective. But in any case, you just want to consider all the costs and, of course, how you work and what works for you. So do I think one is objectively better than the other? Again, it really just depends. I think a lot of the efficiency and fluency that comes from working with a particular device, whether it's a computer or the iPad Pro, is largely derived from our familiarity with the product. So I've got my workflows and my shortcuts all worked out, so it's pretty easy for me to figure this stuff out. So, or not pretty easy rather, it's a little bit challenging to make the switch to something like the iPad Pro, okay? But knowing that there's a program like Astropad out there that can help you, let's see if this, looks like our pinch to zoom doesn't work in Sketchbook Pro. So those shortcuts for pinch to zoom were specifically for Photoshop and other apps that allow you to pinch to zoom, but you can see here that I'm able to use my full Mac desktop experience here using Sketchbook Pro and Photoshop to quickly sketch out some concept automobiles in this case. So one other thing about Astropad is there is a little bit of latency or lag between what you see on your iPad and what you see on screen. I wish I could set this up so you could see next to each other the iPad and the screen, but that's a little bit difficult for me to set up. So just trust me when I say that there's a little bit of lag, but it's not so much that it completely ruins the experience, because really what I'm focused on is what's being shown on the iPad. So as far as I'm concerned, what's being shown on the iPad is what I'm going to get. So if I just focus on this, the lag isn't really an issue. One other thing that might be a little bit surprising is as I pan around here, you can see, let's zoom in so you can see this a little bit better, the drawing actually gets pixelated. And I was doing a little research and saw that there's actually an FAQ about this, and the developer says, oh, that's actually intentional because it actually helps with the performance of the app as you pan around. But you can see there's a little bit of lag between what's happening with the tip of the stylus, okay, and what's happening with my sketch here. But according to the developer, that's on purpose. It's not enough to say write this completely off for me, but it's something that you may notice if you are sketching along and decide to move something or transform or zoom in, for example. I think it does happen. Yep, when you zoom in, it happens as well. So that is just another little quirk with Astropad, but not enough for me to say, no way, this isn't going to be the thing for me. There are a couple little other things that I think would be useful. I wish that this menu were a little bit, like it would auto hide or something, just kind of go away. And maybe it does. Maybe I'm just impatient and I haven't given it a chance. But if you're an Astropad user and you've used this a lot, just let me know. Feel free to shoot a comment here, and I would love to kind of see how you guys are doing what you do. The other weird thing, so I actually use the Lasso Tool quite a bit. With Astropad, you actually have to click and drag instead of the natural Photoshop behavior, which is to move, the stylus. So if this were my mouse, I could actually move this around. So with my left hand, I'm controlling this Lasso Tool, and I can double click, and now I can delete that to create a little area of highlight. And that area of highlight, I just created that with my Lasso Tool there. So there's just a couple little quirks that I think for me would hamper things a little bit. But as soon as this issue with the polygonal Lasso Tool is figured out, which is largely, I think, derived from the fact that we can't really track. I don't know if it's possible to track the tip of the pencil above the iPad, much like a Wacom Cintiq allows you to track the stylus across the top of your screen, but that would be super nice and super helpful to have. One other quirk is that, and this isn't Astropad's fault by any means, but the iPad's color gamut is actually different than the color gamut that I get with my MacBook Pro here. So if I paint this thing here in red, let's see. So I'm painting this red. The red on the screen actually looks different from the red on the iPad, which, if you're referencing what's seen on your iPad without checking what's on the screen, you may end up with a rendering or painting that isn't what you exactly wanted to, isn't exactly what you wanted to get out of it. So that's something to consider as well. that may affect how you render and how you draw. For me, again, not a major deal breaker because I'm not that much of a painter or renderer. I'm more of a sketcher and noodler. So it's not a major issue. Most of my drawings have some sort of black line work or artwork associated with them. So not a huge issue. But again, just a quick overview of Astropad to show you kind of what's possible here with this app configured with your Mac or MacBook Pro. Okay, so if you have any questions, I'd love to do a follow-up video if that's something you guys are interested in. If you have specific questions about the iPad Pro and using Photoshop or Sketchbook Pro, eventually I'm going to have a digital section here on the YouTube channel that covers specifically more of the techniques that I use when I sketch digitally. But for now, if you have any questions related to the video today, just let me know. Shoot me an email to sketchthis@sketchaday.com, or you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/sketchaday or on Instagram at sketchaday.com. Well, thanks guys. In short, Astropad is a great app. I think there is potential. I can see where with a little bit more development, refinement, finesse, that this could really be a game changer for anyone who wants to have a digital tablet that can function at desktop performance and also function in the wild as a portable art studio that gives you functionality and flexibility in ways that I think we weren't able to have before in some ways. The battery life alone for me is just monumental. It's huge. It's a game changer, if you will, in terms of being able to experience this kind of thing out on the go. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you guys next time right here on Sketchaday.